Welcome to Poetry with Shing, where we uncover the beauty behind poetry. Today we are going to look at Garden City by Gilbert. So to begin, I am going to read the poem out and we can then dive straight in. Garden City. Let there be trees, the man said, and lo and behold, there were trees, rain trees, angsanas, flames of the forest, casuarinas, travelers, palms, and more, springing up against the steel and concrete of the expanding city. Even as the true towers of the city climb higher and higher for the heavens, the trees were planted, replanted, transplanted, watered, fertilized, and groomed to grow and grow. They appeared overnight, abandoned the chaos of jungle, bent to the will of man, grew in straight lines, in squares and rectangles, in allocated corners, in car parks, along highways, outside banks and buildings, faithful to the commandments of urban developers. The hard lines of architecture were softened, the rain did fall, the green did gently, gently grow. And in his 70th year, the man was pleased as he rested, as he viewed his work, as he felt the weight of a nation's soil run slowly through his old green hands. Okay, so now we're going to look at the poem. So first, we'll be looking at the title of the poem, Garden City. So gardeners are givers of life because they help to plant trees, they help to take care of them, and trees are living things, so yeah, giver of life. And Garden City, it is also possibly a biblical allusion meaning a reference to the Garden of Eden, which is the story which links to the story of creation and the beginning of everything. So let there be trees, the man said. So here again, another reference to the Bible. And the man said, so here the man is commanding. So this man in question here is seemingly the creator in the poem, and he sees himself as the god. And lo and behold, there were trees, rain trees, angsanas, flame of the forest. So all these trees are actually native to Singapore. So this poem is written in the Singapore context. So springing up against the steel and concrete. So here the springing up provides us with a very, very vivid image of the strength and flexibility of the trees. And the steel and concrete, over here we can see a very, very sharp contrast. Steel and concrete are actually very strong and rigid. So they are conflicting qualities, which also actually bring the tension, which is key to the poem, to light. So it shows tension. The trees are being planted against the backdrop of buildings, so there's a bit of falsity, a bit of like unnaturalness of the trees growing in the midst of a concrete jungle of the expanding city. So the expanding city is forever developing. It is becoming bigger and bigger, more and more technologically advanced, and so on. So even as the true towers of the city climb higher, and higher for the heavens. So again, higher and higher for the heavens, another biblical reference. The trees were planted, replanted, transplanted. So here, replanting and transplanting, watering and fertilizing are all done by men, and it shows that the trees and the greenery are actually under the dominance of this man, or like to mankind in general. So there is a certain order and planning as shown through the listing: planted, replanted, transplanted, watered, fertilized, and groomed to grow. It seems like everything is already planned out, and it actually reflects kind of an unnaturalness, so like an unnatural process that the trees undergo. So they are groomed to grow. So again, it is all man's will. It's all what man wanted. So for man to be able to plant things suggests that man is able to give life. So again, one of like another possibility of man playing God in a sense. So things cleared of original vegetation, while vegetation is cleared, and trees are now being able to be controlled and planted by man. So they appear overnight and abandon the chaos of jungle. So chaos of jungle because rainforests used to cover about 70% of Singapore land. Unfortunately, now we are down to less than 10% if my memory is right. So chaos of jungle refer to rainforests in Singapore before deforestation, and deforestation It's because the plants were destroyed in order to construct our idea, or like your idea of a garden city. So it shows that it is the man that is having this vision of a garden city, and ironically man has to cut down trees, jungles in order to build this garden when the garden is already seen through the jungle. So it's based on a vision you or we as a human race have on a modern city. So it's a lot about the will, the dominance, the utter absolute control that man has over the earth that we are living in. Bent to the will of man again shows the dominance of this man, any man, we, yeah. So grew in straight lines. So here straight lines are planned and deliberate by man, and it is perfection. So it is very ironic because in nature it's very, very hard for you to get perfection, like in squares and rectangles and allocated corners. So again, we're a perfection, precision, accuracy, just like everything is crafted to the ideal. So in car parks, along highways, outside banks and buildings, faithful. So faithful here is obeying, following willingly to the commandments. Again, commandments are a biblical reference. So urban developers are actually compared to God over here. The hard lines of architecture were softened, the rain did fall, the green did gently grow. So here it is showing how nature and man are actually compromising with one another, and they're trying to adapt. So nature is trying to adapt to the environment, but is there any sense that man is actually adapting and compromising to that environment? It is not entirely shown in this poem, unfortunately. So it actually is a message that the poet is trying to tell us, perhaps, so you can go back to think about it. So in the second last line, as he felt the weight of a nation's soul run slowly through his old green hand. So the weight, the importance, so the weight refers to the importance of the nation's soil. So shows how it's quite hard for us to wrap our heads around how it is about how important, how despite a nation being so important to us, we still go about destroying it by deforestation, by deforesting, etc. Yeah, so by taming and subduing the wild vegetation as well. So this poem is Garden City by Gilbert, and we have come to the end of today's episode. If you would like to hear another poem being analysed, do write down the name of the poet and poem in the comments below.